Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's a couple minutes before 9 o'clock. That's right. We're so much on time. We are early. We are excited to talk about our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. And with me, as always, except when he's not.
And nobody out there knows what to do because,
they're like, wait, what is this? What's going on? Yeah. But with me, as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how you breathing tonight?
We're not so good.
Yeah, both of us got a little bit of a cough. But can you do it, though? Come on, they're waiting for it.
Hold on.
You got to give the people what they want.
We will breathe in a sweet smell of another Steeler victory.
That's
one I was totally not necessarily feeling we would get, traveling all the way to Seattle on the West Coast to play in a very tough place to play. And the Steelers went in and honestly dominated.
Yeah, it was another one of those games that I felt like I had confidence that they were going to come through. But well, with how things played out, I was confident as the game rolled on because you kind of get that with the Steelers now. This is 2 straight games of scoring points. I mean, this one was 30-23, but I mean, really, it was 37-23. If you really want to say that. And that was one thing that Jeff's looking for losers in his winners and losers column that he also does for Monday's Let's Ride. And he didn't want to say Mason Cole snapping again because he's been harping on that for forever. So he came up with the red zone efficiency. But I'm like, oh, Jefferson. I praised them with the red zone in my numbers article. They reached the red zone 7 times. Now, one of them was given to them by a takeaway. 7 times. Yeah, they got 3 touchdowns, but the last 2, they weren't even trying to score a touchdown. The next to last one, they were just, they'd have taken the touchdown if it would have come on safe plays, but they wanted to make sure that they went up 2 scores, and that was smart with how much time was left. You got to make sure you go up 2 scores. And then the last one, they had the touchdown, and he falls down wisely and cost Jeff money in FanDuel, and some people cost them championships in fantasy football. But you know what? I'll take it football. As long as the Steelers are finishing in victory formation. So, it was tough to find losers in that game. It was great. I loved it. How was it? How was the experience for you? Did Kyle watch the game with you?
He did. He started downstairs for a little bit, and then he's like, am I allowed to come up and watch? I said, Kyle, of course you're allowed to come up and watch. So he came up partway through the first quarter.
Yeah. So good. I got to watch the game with our brother-in-law and our brother-in-law's brother, who was my old college roommate. They were here for New Year's Eve, and it was two games of, once again, me not watching the game by myself, having company. But Rich, I did it even though I had company. I did it because it worked the week before. And now I have to do it Saturday as well, where I found the right combination, where I was so sick of the Steelers not playing well. I didn't even feel like putting on my Steelers gear. And then I did, well, I'll at least put on the Cam Hayward jersey in case it was his last home game. But I kept on my Christmas pajama pants. So this past week, I wore the Christmas pajama pants again. So I'm going to ride that until it doesn't work. Even though, I was looking at it, for those of you that might be considering it, there's some pros and cons. You can get some good seats for a good price to this game if you're anywhere close to Baltimore.
Ravens fans are dumping their tickets like crazy.
Well, because it's not about a win for them. They don't. The only good thing for them winning the game, I think I said this on the on Mike Tomlin's press conference recap that I did yesterday. The only good thing for them is that they would have beaten the Steelers, not got swept by them, and that they wouldn't have to face the Steelers in the playoffs at all. That's it. But there's so much more bad that could happen for them. They can't improve and become more of the number 1 seed. But if something happens where a key person gets dinged up, that's bad. But see, at the same time, I also think it's bad if they rest everyone too long. I would treat it like a preseason game. If you were a Wang, if you were good old Wang Harbs, how would you play this one? If this was the Steelers in the opposite direction of Baltimore, and if their roles were flipped, how would you play this one? Having the number 1 seed locked up, knowing you have a bye, you don't have anything to play for. But if you rest everybody, then you got 2 weeks off, and then you got to worry about that a little bit.
Now, a true Wang Harbs move would be to have the Steelers travel all the way to Baltimore and then never leave the locker room. Steelers win 2-0.
Yeah, and forfeit.
And then have to travel home.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But, I mean, how would you do it?
There's a couple players he's going to be particularly careful with. He's going to be extra careful with Lamar. Because
you got to be.
You got to be. When you're talking TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Nick Herbig, when you're talking
Keanu
those
Benton.
guys, when you're talking those guys chasing Lamar, do you really want to risk it when there's nothing for him to gain?
Exactly.
Nothing to gain. So a player like that, your quarterback, I think he's going to be extra cautious with.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I mean, gee whiz, there's so much running back cut by committee right now. I would suspect most of those guys play.
Yeah.
Maybe you hold, I don't know, maybe you hold one out or something.
Well, here's something that could come into play. And while we do this, Rich, I noticed this as well. Some people are saying they're having some problems hearing you tonight. Don't know if you can get any. I know your voice is a little bit weaker because you're a little bit under the weather.
Yeah,
don't know if you can adjust your mic at all.
Yeah, let me see what I can play here.
But while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead. Now, this is just like the Steelers. They had a walk through. This was an estimated injury report. I'm going to give you for the Ravens. Because to me, anyone who's dinged up, you sit. If someone's dinged up, you that should be an easy call. Because, I mean, for example, the 49ers resting Christian McCaffrey with the calf issue. That's what you do. That's what you're looking to do. But here for the Ravens, Zay Flowers didn't practice calf. Safety Kyle Hamilton, limited knee. Linebacker Malik Harrison didn't practice groin. Cornerback Marlon Humphrey, calf, didn't practice. Cornerback Arthur Millette, hip, limited. Linebacker Delshawn Phillips, shoulder, limited. Linebacker Patrick Queen, shoulder, limited. Defensive back Brandon Stevens, ankle, limited. Outside linebacker Kyle Van Noy, calf, limited. Defensive back Daryl Worley, shoulder, ankle, didn't practice. Guard Kevin Zeitler, knee, quad, limited. Any of those guys that aren't 100%, I mean, you have to have enough people to play, but I would do as much as you could to keep the injured people out.
I agree. You know, it's you even get down to having to decide on guys like a Patrick McQueen. Like, how much do you want him to play? Yeah. Because he's such a big part of your defense. How long do you want to keep him on the field and risk him to an injury? Yeah. You know,
yep. Especially if he's not 100%.
Exactly. And it's one of those where honestly, I always worry about the Steelers when they've been in these situations. Sometimes I think it's easier to be a team that has something that you're playing for that last week, because then as the coach, you play the game and you don't get second guessed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, really the biggest thing they could do is take an injury. And what are the matchups typically for the Ravens and Steelers that give them some key injuries? It's against each other. They're usually physical matchups. So I would say if they play Lamar for a little bit, I'd be really careful with what you even ask him to do. I really would. Because yes, as some are saying, where was it? I'm looking for it here. I went to click and I missed. Brian Mizwa says, got to realize Baltimore doesn't want us in the playoffs. That's true. But what's more important, to not have the Steelers in the playoffs or to make sure that your key players are healthy and able to play? You got to balance the two. For example, did the Steelers really want the Browns in the playoffs in 2020? No. But not only did they not play some of their key guys, that was during the pandemic, they didn't even have them travel because they didn't want them to have something happen with COVID. Like Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, they didn't even leave Pittsburgh when the game was in Cleveland because you wanted to make sure that those guys were ready. And Mason Rudolph almost won that game. It wasn't because of anything he did. So, but there was one other part about the game that because we got off on this Baltimore. Why, Baltimore fans are dumping their tickets because they're not. The most important thing is to not win this game. It's to be healthy. I was there in what year was that? Was it 2014? Because 2015 is when I got my season. I was there the final game of the season in 2014 when the Steelers were playing the Bengals for the AFC North Championship and in order to host a playoff game. And it was great. But when Le'Veon Bell went down with the injury, it just sucked the air out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Because that was more than more important than actually I think they were in the playoffs no matter what, but hosting that game and everything. Okay. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I will say this. Yes, Jerry Cherry Band, my mic is hotter. Sorry, I'm probably blowing you away now. I'm I have no. Sorry, hold on. Tell me where it's good, Dave. How's that?
Right there.
Okay.
Try that. Okay.
Woo.
All right, there we go. All right. But the other reason is there's a potential snowstorm this weekend.
Yes.
Right now, my area, an hour west of Baltimore, right now they're saying that we can have 5 to 8 inches of snow. Now, Baltimore's further east. They might get more rain. We won't know about this till probably Thursday, maybe Friday, of what could happen. But yeah, that's another factor if you want to try to go to the game.
All right, so my weather guy says still snow in Baltimore as long as the noon run of the GFS was wrong, which he thought it was, because it had changed the way the storm was going to form. Mm-hmm. But other models had not. So they're still probably going to get a couple inches of snow around Baltimore.
During the game, most likely.
During the game, yes.
Yes. So
weather will be a factor.
Yeah. So for those of us that are sitting at home more and more on our couches, it'll be a factor watching the game. For those of you considering, would I want to go to Baltimore for this one? Rich, no joke. I found a couple pairs of tickets in the front row. Now, not like on the side. One was in the corner, one was in the end zone for like less than $250 for this per ticket in the front row.
Yeah.
In the front row. You can get like $60 tickets in the upper deck if you're interested right now. But then again, you got to have to worry about the weather to get there. So that's we were already talking about, can the Steelers find enough magic in Week 18, which is the title of the podcast. But we still want to talk some more about what happened in Seattle as well. Rich, I'm getting a little frustrated. About something that I went off on this show before. And that is, I'm so tired of not being able to have real important conversations about things because it's too polarizing. And it's multiple things going on right now. Multiple things. Like right now, the Steelers, they've won 2 games in a row. They've scored more than 30 points in those 2 games. And yet those people who, no matter what, want Mike Tomlin gone, which I'm not saying it's everybody, but some of those people, it's for more reasons to be on football that we just don't want to get into. That's his fault. They didn't win those other games beforehand because he didn't go to Mason Rudolph. The same people that were crying about how Mason Rudolph isn't the guy, now we're saying, how bad is his coaching staff because they didn't play him sooner? The same people, as I said this in the postgame show, that were crying about the initial depth chart that had Kenny Pickett third before Mike Tomlin got forced to change it and said it was the cut and paste component and a clerical error. Because how dare you have Mason Rudolph ahead of Kenny Pickett, are now saying, why didn't they have Mason Rudolph ahead of Kenny Pickett and Mr. Trubisky? I just, and I know it might not be the same people, but it's the vocal ones and that sound the same. That it's never gonna be happy. I want to be able to talk about what Mike Tomlin does right and wrong. But yet I've been accused of being both a Mike Tomlin hater and a Mike Tomlin apologist, which means I'm probably getting it right. Okay. The same thing can happen with Kenny Pickett and with Mason Rudolph. I wish we could actually have the conversation without people blowing it up. I mean, can you believe myself, Jeff Hartman, and of course Brian Anthony Davis, were accused of being against Mason Rudolph from the very beginning? Did you realize that Jeff only has 3 Steelers jerseys and one of them is a Mason Rudolph jersey? Jeff and I both thought Rudolph was going to be the guy after Roethlisberger. I wanted the Steelers to draft him in the first round of 2018, right before I started into this industry. That's what I wanted. And then as things went on and it didn't work out, I understand. But the same people are now saying Rudolph's the guy. Kenny Pickett just isn't it. Well, don't do to Kenny Pickett the same thing you did to Mason Rudolph and said that he wasn't it after just 2 seasons. It's just it's so in the now and hypocritical. It's just, I want to be able to talk about it for real and not just be, oh, well, you're just this or you're just that. Can we talk about it for real? All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
Look, recently I've been a little bit critical of Coach Tomlin because during that losing streak, I'd felt Coach Tomlin had basically lost the locker room. I thought the Steelers would not win against the Bengals, would not win against the Seahawks, would not win against the Ravens because the locker room was lost.
Mm-hmm.
With the turnaround to show that the just way the Steelers have played the last 2 weeks goes to show you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Tomlin has not lost the locker room.
Nope.
Now, if he has not lost the locker room and the Steelers are still playing a meaningful football game this week, says a lot because I was to the point where I felt he had lost the team. And it's now apparent that even if he was losing his grip on the team, he was able to come back and find it again. That in itself says a lot to me.
Yeah.
Says a lot to me. The other one was, where was I reading today? Coach Tomlin had his time as the Steelers head coach has only played 1 game that was not meaningful.
Yeah, that the Steelers were eliminated from contention. Yep.
Last week of 2012.
So
1 game.
I think that was it. And, or was it, yeah, because even
I'm pretty sure it was last game of 2012.
Because it wasn't 2013, because even though they started 0-4, I was at that final game against the Browns where they needed 101 things to go right, and they all did in the early window, and then they just needed the last one that didn't. Right. So I don't, and that's the thing. It's I really want to be able to say this is where Coach Tomlin got it wrong, and this is where Coach Tomlin got it right. But as soon as I mention one thing, I'm going to get attacked by one side. And then when I mention the other thing, I'm going to get attacked by the other. That's the thing that's just got me so frustrated with some things. And you know why I bring it up on the show? Because we have such a great audience that can also understand and everything. Like here we go. Where did it go? Steeler Chick 46. Mason developed when we were not able to see it. Yeah. Honestly, do you know what? I think part of the problem with Mason Rudolph, believe it or not, was coaching. I want to be able to say that. But then next thing you know, he's a Tomlin hater. No. I'm not saying Mike Tomlin. I'm just, That could be some of it and could be all of it. But I said it back then in 2019. I was I was constantly concerned with Mason Rudolph saying, well, Coach Randy, about not turning the ball over. Don't turn the ball over. I've said this so many times. His interviews of constantly mentioning not turning the ball over. I'm like, you've got him wound so tight. He doesn't even feel like he can throw the ball.
Now, staying on that point.
Yeah.
I have something to bring up. It is right on that point. Okay. What happened? Because it's going to lead me to something else from this game. Okay.
Yep.
The Mason Rudolph we have now, still doing the same thing, but what it is, he has actually figured it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. As where at times I think Kenny Pickett has not. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the biggest beneficiary of that so far has been George Pickens.
Yeah.
So, what Mason has figured out is don't turn the ball over. That doesn't mean when pressure comes, chuck it up in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
What he's been doing is when the pressure comes, throw it where only your guy is going to get it.
Even if you miss, and
even
no one
if you miss, correct.
Yeah. But you got to miss then when no one gets it.
Case in point, when he lets go of that ball that George Pickens comes across the field and catches.
And dives for.
Up, I'm thinking halfway there, he overthrew him, but threw it where he needed to given the pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet, honestly, this says a lot also about the relationship Mason Rudolph has built with George Pickens. George Pickens just keeps telling the quarterbacks, give me a chance, I'll make the play for you. Give me the chance, I'll make the play for you. Give me the chance, I'll make the play for you. Okay? So Mason, instead of chucking the ball out of bounds, says, you know what? I'm going to throw it out there where it's either going to be incomplete or if George can somehow miraculously come up with it, then great. Yeah. And George Pickens came up with the catch.
Yeah. Well, about that throw particularly, Mason Rudolph went to throw it, stepped to throw, clutch back. I don't think it was because of Pickens. I think it was because of the pressure around him.
Yes.
And when he ultimately threw that ball, he had already stepped. That was all arm.
Yes, it was.
His body had already made the throw, and he brought his arm back and just boom. So that was.
But again, it was put it out there. That ball was going to take a miraculous catch by George Pickens, or it was going to fall incomplete.
Yeah.
Okay. The week before, the crazy catch George Pickens made on the sideline, right?
If he doesn't catch it, it's going to be. There was one thrown in that game that was too far out of bounds because he threw it where it was going to be his guy or incomplete.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So so I think is there is a level of trust that Mason Rudolph is showing, especially George Pickens, but his receivers, and they then are doing what they need to for him.
Yeah.
See, I think, when we were seeing George Pickens earlier in the year getting frustrated at times with Kenny Pickett, I think it's because Kenny Pickett throws a lot of balls out of bounds. And I think it was making George Pickens upset because he was saying, throw it out here and give me a chance, man. You chuck it in the stands, nobody has a chance.
Well, but you can say that, but the reason he got really frustrated is because Mitch Trubisky just wasn't doing it at all.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my goodness, when he had a chance to throw a 50-50 ball and on a 4th and short and he's throwing it deep, he had the same route on both sides of the field, and he chose to go to Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Which just didn't make sense. Just didn't make sense. So Pickens was like, man, he won't do anything to do that. To me, I think what's got Mason Rudolph going for these 2 games, and I hope it continues to where the Steelers can find enough magic in Week 18, because there's no guarantee that this will continue because of what I'm about to say. Mason Rudolph is not playing thinking about the future. Mason Rudolph is playing in the present. He's not worried about how this will affect him down the line. He's not worried about, does this mean I'm going to have to, can I stick around in this city or do I got to go somewhere else to find another contract? That's number 10 I'm talking about. He's not talking about, am I going to get my 5th-year option picked up? Am I going to be the guy moving forward? And blah, blah, blah. No, because you got guys behind you that are capable. You got to do, you can't take too many chances and screw them up because then you could possibly get replaced. Mason Rudolph's not playing that way. And you know what? He's not turning the ball over either. He's not playing for the future. He's playing for the present because out of everyone, he knows that the future wasn't guaranteed. He almost had no future this past offseason. He was almost done. The Steelers didn't take him back to be the number 3 guy. And he got a chance. Great for him. Great story. Whether he's in Pittsburgh next year or somewhere, I want to see him continue on in the NFL. I hope it's in Pittsburgh. I really do.
Yep.
But I think it's that mentality. And honestly, I think that mentality was. I don't know if it is now because Kenny Pickett only had 1 full game without Matt Canada, and he played pretty darn good. And people were like, well, look at what Arizona. He had him on the cusp of going up 10-3 in that game when he got hurt. You can't really judge him on that game. But I think it's more the coordinators because we had someone whispering in our ear. They're like, you know how Kenny Pickett was never throwing the ball in the middle of the field with Matt Canada as the coordinator? That had Mike Tomlin ticked.
Yep.
He would just say, come on, use the middle of the field. And Canada wouldn't do it. That might be part of the reason why he had enough and let him go finally. So to think that, and that's the one thing, because here's an example, because we're going to talk about the defense a little bit. And this was another thing that I'm like, can we just give it a rest with every little thing being about how it's time for Mike Tomlin to go? Is Mike Tomlin a good football coach? Yes, he is. Is there the possibility that the time that Mike Tomlin's been in Pittsburgh, it would be better for both him and the Steelers if it's just gotten to be too much of the same thing for too long? Absolutely. I'm not going to argue that is potentially one of those things that we'll talk about this coming off season. And I think it would be as much Tomlin as anything else. I think what's going to really key if Tomlin signs an extension is how much freedom is he going to have an input on bringing in the right guy to be offensive coordinator. That's just me. But that's stuff that we'll talk about once the season is done. But I put out a tweet, a twixt, or whatever it is, that I saw the highest individual game score ever given by PFF that I've ever seen. It was by a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers from this past game. I've never seen a 99.0 score for a game. Never seen it. I know some of you don't like PFF, and I don't buy them all the time. But it doesn't mean that it's not just like there's a happy medium, just like to talk about the quarterbacks or the coaches. Okay, PFF doesn't always get it wrong, but they definitely don't always get it right either.
Yeah.
But Nick Herbig had a 99.0 defensive score this week. He played 2 snaps. That's why he got such a high score on defense, is he played 2 snaps, and on one of them, he turned it into a sack, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. That's making the most of your opportunity. I'm like, that's great. And what do people start coming in and complaining about? That's the problem with his coaching staff. He's not on the field enough. Oh, so the second they put Nick Herbig out there and something happens and they bust a big play, that's the problem with his coaching staff. Why wasn't TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith out there on the key moment? It's like no matter what happens, even when somebody does something good, those that have decided that they don't like Mike Tomlin, it's Mike Tomlin's fault because something wasn't better. And that's what made me really frustrated. That's really why I got all worked up about this earlier, is because of the response to that tweet, that you couldn't just be happy that Nick Herbig came in and made a phenomenal play off the bench. It had to suddenly be, he didn't play those snaps. If he would have played more snaps, his score wouldn't have been as high. It would have brought it down. So how great was that? Dude, he was so fast on that, wasn't he?
Real quick, You can tell he works out with TJ Watt. He got real low on the bend and that rip move up through and just lightning quick. And it's just like, how cool is it for a guy like Herbig who has a similar skill set as TJ Watt to be able to spend time and learn from TJ Watt.
Yeah. TJ Watt, who was elected team MVP today,
Yes.
For the fourth time in 5 years. Was not MVP last year because he missed half the season. That was Minkah Fitzpatrick. 5 straight years of defenders being the MVPs after 8 straight years of the offense. So just thought I'd throw that shout out there. But yeah, but not only that, Marcus Golden played 9 snaps. 6 snaps were pass rushing, 3 were against the run. Out of those 6 pass rushing snaps, he had 3 quarterback hits.
That's pretty
good. Yeah. But
that's what you want your guys coming in to spell your starters to be able to do.
Yes. Now, does that mean that they should be on the field more and the other guys should be on the field less? No, you need to find a delicate balance where they're fresh. If Nick Herbig wasn't fresh on that play when he comes in, then I don't know if he gets there in the same manner. Because he would, like I said on the postgame show, it looks like he was shot out of a cannon. He just flew in there, and it's just it's great to have that. But my goodness, if there's he should have played 3 more snaps. That's just an indictment on the head coach. That's the kind of stuff that just gets me frustrated. So sorry that I had to go off in that a little bit. Rich, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll come back, hit some more notes from Seattle, talk a little bit more about the game coming up, and of course, we will have to finish it up with our scores. So if you're with us here, YouTube, Facebook, Twixter, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us on the audio side, we'll be right back after these messages. All right, Steelers fans, here we go. We're rolling on into the second part of the Scho Bro Show. Rich, I'm going to try to get off my soapbox now and let it go. I don't know. That just really frustrated me. That I'm trying to give props to a player. Man,
hey, Dave,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah,
the crabs are dead.
The crabs are dead. I know. I know. Gotta let it go. But that's the thing. I would like to be able to sit back and talk about what Mason Rudolph is doing well, what he could do better. If you talk about what he's doing well, you're just against Kenny Pickett. If you talk about what he could do better, you just must be a Pitt fan. No one is perfect.
Okay,
let's be able to have real conversations.
Dave.
So I know.
Stop with that, and then let's have real conversations. Thank you.
So here's the real conversation. I mentioned this before. Do you remember when Mason Rudolph was the starter for a bunch of games in 2019?
As a rookie.
It was technically his second year, but he never dressed his first year.
Correct.
So I got thrust into it pretty early, and he's coming from the Big 12, which, they have prolific offenses, but you've really got to learn a lot of NFL stuff coming from the Big 12.
Right.
They're not really NFL offenses. So he probably needed to learn some things. It's probably why he was a 3rd round draft pick, although he was the next quarterback selected after Lamar Jackson. They were technically, but one of the things was a comment that was made about him a lot. He's a statue in the pocket. I saw the post-game show. I wanted to get your opinion. Now that we've seen what we've seen last year and this year, give me the statue. Give me someone that will stand in there long enough to let some of these plays develop and deliver the throw, rather than someone that's just going to bail on the pocket before they even need to.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on Mason Rudolph in the pocket right now?
Look, who was a master of working the pocket, hanging in there, staying in? When I think of guys that are really good at that, especially recently, first person that comes to mind to me is Peyton Manning. All right. The guy did not move particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
His thing was to hang in the pocket, hang in the pocket, hang in the pocket, and sometimes last second deliver the ball. That's kind of what I've been feeling from Mason Rudolph. That's what that throw to George Pickens was.
Yeah.
Wait, all but sacked, has no body into the throw, lays it out there with his arm, Pickens makes a play.
Yeah.
Stay in the pocket, eyes downfield, going through the reads, going through the progressions, making a play.
What I think he could still do, and I think he's doing better now than he did to start with, is that one-step slide.
Yes.
Taking the defender off the direct line. But honestly, on Saturday, it was Sunday for once. On Sunday, I felt like he had so much more time. I felt like he had a lot of time in the pocket.
Yeah, I thought that the offensive line not just gave him a lot of time, they held a decent shape in the pocket.
Yes.
What's gone wrong a lot this year is four guys holding the pocket, one guy getting blown up.
Yes.
And I wasn't seeing that so much. Or you'd see a guy start to get pushed, and then would reestablish the base and hold just enough to allow Mason to make the throw.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. That's a good way to do it. They held a good shape of the pocket for him. And he doesn't panic. He hasn't panicked. Even when he got sacked, yes, I didn't notice on the game replay, but I did see later that, Jaylen Warren was open on the far left side. Would have been nice if he would have made it that far to dump that off. But the one time he was sacked, it wasn't because he just crumbled or panicked or whatever. He got taken down. And it was one sack, and that's just what it was. So I found it odd when I wrote my PFF article today where I just reported on the grades. So one of the things I didn't agree with, they had Mason Rudolph with his passing, with his overall grade this game, like 20 points higher than the game before.
Yeah, I saw that in your article, and I was like you. I don't get it.
I thought he played pretty consistent over both games. I wouldn't call, and if you would have called one better, some people like, the first one better because he had a couple touchdowns. He had the more long connections, but he had more yards per attempt in this game. I thought they were pretty steady performances both times.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it as a big variance from one week to the other. And I think that's really good and really important.
Yeah, put it this way. If we could get somewhere like what we saw the first 2 weeks for Mason, if we could get a similar game this week in Baltimore, I really like the Steelers' chances.
Absolutely. I do too. Even where did I see it? I think it was Jeremy Fowler had that out there on X Twixter, as I like to call it, that over the last 2 weeks, the Steelers and the Ravens have been the most prolific offenses in the NFL, and now they play in Week 18. The Steelers have gained more yards than the Ravens. The Ravens have scored more points. Well, that's because they put up 56 on the Dolphins. But
I think anybody could put up.
Who would have thought that?
Huh?
2 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. Who would have thought the Steelers
56 was easy on the Dolphins.
Yeah.
When you get into the third quarter and the Dolphins start going for it on fourth down constantly on the their own side of the 50.
Yeah. No, but what
happening, 56 isn't that ridiculous.
But my point is, who would have believed that the Steelers would have been talked about as being one of the most prolific offenses going into the final week of the NFL? You'd have told me that 3 weeks ago, I would have thought you were friggin' nuts.
Well, yeah, I don't think I had a different word. It started with P, and it was more like pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the narrative.
Yeah. You're like, you misspelled
3-4 weeks
pathetic and said prolific. Oh,
yes.
That's what happened. No, I mean, the offense looks capable. And they've needed to be, because the defense has been so decimated with injury. You can't just sit back and let the defense stop the other team and you do just enough to win. You're going to have to go out there and win the game. And after the last 2 weeks, especially last week, they did.
Yes,
they did. And they were, and people are like, oh, well, neither of them were very good defenses. You could say that all you want, but you got to remember this. At kickoff, the last two opponents that the Steelers have faced were currently in the playoffs before they played the Steelers. Seattle was in, lost the Steelers. Bengals were in, lost. Now they're eliminated. 2 weeks later they're eliminated, but they were in. They were like the 6th seed when they faced the Steelers. Steelers knocked them down. So you've got to remember that. Now let's talk about the injuries on defense. It was just a projection because it was just a walkthrough, but there was no Minkah Fitzpatrick and no Landon Roberts projected today. Don't know if the Steelers get either of them back. It's funny. Some people are making a big deal. Kenny Pickett took a huge step in actually being able to come back. If we want to talk about the Kenny Pickett thing, we can briefly. But because he practiced fully. No, he didn't. He didn't have practice. They didn't have practice. It was an estimation. It was a walkthrough. He didn't practice fully today. You can't make that declamation. Hopefully he can practice fully tomorrow. But he's back, and he's lined up to be the number 2, although technically on the depth chart, he's 1 and Rudolph's 2.
We're talking about practice.
Yeah, we're talking about practice.
We're talking about practice. Not a game.
Not a game.
We're talking about practice.
Yeah. So, Rich, how do you feel about the middle of the Steelers defense on the second and third level?
The wisest thing I think they did to try to combat that, first of all, I thought Miles Jack looked really good this past week.
I said this after the game. Does he look skinnier because he's wearing number 16?
I don't know if it's because he's wearing 16, but he looked slimmed down and faster.
Yeah.
I don't know. But he looked pretty good. But I think the thing that really helped was the veteran presence of Patrick Peterson moving to safety.
Because you have that person that knows what they're doing back there, like you would with Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Correct. A guy that's willing to sit back there and quarterback things, because think about it. You have your green dot guy as an inside linebacker usually, because they're in a good place on the field to communicate. But who has the best view of what is out there in front of them?
The safety.
Yeah. So.
This funny. Frosty the Bear says, I'm buying a number 1 jersey that did look thinner. No, that's the problem with me trying to wear a Roethlisberger jersey. It's like this really wide shirt with a skinny number 7 in there. It just doesn't look right.
Yeah,
but,
it could, Frosty, that's one of those that can work to an extent, but it's never going to work for guys like Dave and I. We're just a little too large.
It's just not. So, to me, I think having Miles Jack, when they brought him back to the practice squad, I said it before. I'm like, he's a guy that if things continue to go downhill with injury, you at least have someone who has been with the Steelers that has a chance to be able to step out there and communicate. And unfortunately, it's come to it, and he's done a nice job. Having Eric Rowe as someone who's a been there, done that guy that's back there that can understand the communication.
And and a guy that's been out there before, so the stage isn't too big.
Yeah. And believe it or not, Levi Wallace played pretty good this game.
Yeah, but the thing with him, I think they really are trying to, what I want to say, makes you wonder why maybe we haven't looked at it before, but they were really trying to do a lot more things to play to his strengths.
Yeah.
And not put him in situations where you're asking him to do more than he's potentially capable of.
Yeah. Yep.
Part of that, I believe, is because you have Joey Porter Jr. on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
You have
as
a
the
guy,
confidence rises
you
in
have
him.
a guy who is willing to look at the coaches and say, just give me that guy one-on-one. You don't have to roll me the help. I'll get it done.
Yeah.
Maybe. Again, without being in the room, don't know for sure, but, some things that you think could potentially be happening to try to help that defense out in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So my thing
by the way, you can also cover up a lot of things, a lot of, I don't know if I want to call them deficiencies, but you can cover up a lot of downsides on things when you can put the kind of pass rush on that the Steelers can put.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
And you
the
say
Steelers
the
only had one sack, but they had a lot of pressures in
there. They were that front. I call them a front 4 or 5.
Yeah.
They were disruptive.
Yes.
They were disruptive.
And you had the big 3 receivers from Seattle. The other 2 each had 1 catch. Now, one was for a touchdown, but that was also on James Pierre. He had 2 defensive snaps. I think it was maybe 3, something like that, and gave up the touchdown. And Joey Porter was trying to run out onto the field.
I know.
And they knew there wasn't time, and they stopped him, and Pierre gives up the touchdown. Which, was he playing where Joey Porter was? I don't know, but I think Pierre is who would have come off the field if Porter came on the field. So it is what it is. But yeah, Smith and Jigba only had 1 catch, and it was a touchdown, and Tyler Lockett only had 1 catch. So that, and DK Metcalf is a freak. He really is. It's like,
oh my gosh. I don't know what, if I'm tell you what, like,
it's like Calvin Johnson freak. That guy, I watched him play in person. He's a freak.
I think he's even beyond Calvin Johnson freak.
But I don't know that he has the pure skill that Calvin Johnson had.
Yeah,
he was one
perhaps.
of the best.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. What I want to say, Calvin Johnson was a wide receiver that then had freakish physical traits.
Yes.
DK Metcalf, I believe, is a guy with freakish physical traits who has learned to play wide receiver.
That's a great way to say it. I agree. I can agree with that. I get behind it.
I'd still throw him the ball more if he was a wide receiver on my team. Yeah. Throw him the ball more. Because he is just a freak.
Yeah. It's funny. Brian Brown said, I was reminded why James Pierre was passed by. And then right after that, Mr. Woodside says, I think Pierre is better than Wallace. That I don't think you were paying attention on Sunday to those guys because Pierre
Wallace was better.
Yeah, but I don't know what happened with Pierre. He was coming along so well, and then he wasn't. But could be, changing coaching and things like that. I don't know. But
I have some other thoughts, but I am not going to share them here on the show.
Gotcha. Uh-oh.
What?
I don't know. It seems like that's, I don't know. Hey, one more thing.
Yeah.
How great was it to not have to see Presley Harvin kick it very much? 1 punt, 46 yards inside the 20. You didn't have to worry about him not helping the Steelers out because he just didn't have to very much. That's the thing. We complain about the punter. You know what's better is when you don't really need your punter.
Yeah.
It's a much nicer game to watch.
Where you're not relying on him to help win games.
Yes. Now, based on the Steelers' style of play up until this point this year, they needed that. That was the way they were playing. Field position, defense, all that. Now, all of a sudden, this team, they found the magic on offense. They're not holding anything back. Last game of the season this week, don't hold anything back. Go out there, get it done.
I thought you were going to do it early in the show because you set yourself up for it, but
Well, yes, I know. But now the Steelers got to go in a bottom. I have a question for you, Rich. Let's take the Steelers game off the table.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Go ahead.
I'm going to bring up something somebody put in the live chat. I'm going to do a quick answer, then you can go back.
Okay.
Right. Victory Asher says, do you guys think Corey Trice could be the missing cornerback piece for 2024? Hold that question. Hold that question to as we get into the off season.
That's going to be a big one.
This is a player I would like to talk about, but not right now. Not until the Steelers are done.
Yeah.
Not till this season's done. Then we'll talk that. So hold that question, Victory, and we will talk about it.
Yes. Before I go on to what I was going to say about talking about this week, I should at least ask, is there anything you wanted to say about that whole Kenny Pickett story? Or are you just like, let's just move on and worry about, on to Baltimore? Just wanted to give you an opportunity. Didn't want to ignore it.
I don't necessarily want to ignore it. Where did that story break?
I think Mark Cabali insinuated it on something on the Fan. Mark Madden ran with it big time. That's really where it's coming from. We're trying to reach out to our sources to see if we can get any clarity on it. I haven't been able to do that yet.
I knew Madden had tweeted it out, but I figured he had gotten some info from somewhere. I think what happened was people took things, read between lines.
Yeah.
It kind of just started to go and snowball and shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's right, but it happens. Okay.
I'm not saying it's nothing, but I'm also not saying it's what it was made out to be either. It's
Correct.
like the truth most of the time, probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, come on, think about it. Kenny Pickett gets cleared to play late in the week, and he's thinking that he can play, and the Steelers are saying, I'm so tired of people on social media saying guys shouldn't lose their jobs due to injury. Well, you know what? If someone else is playing really good, you know what? It happens all the time. Bring back. I mean, my goodness, how about losing your job to a non-injury? Remember, I brought this up in the live chat of the Q&A on Saturday. That remember 99 when the Bills had wrapped things up, and so they rested Doug Flutie and played Rob Johnson. Yeah. And he played well, so they decided not to put Flutie back in the lineup in the playoffs, and they lost the Music City Miracle.
Yep.
He wasn't even injured.
I remember that.
They were resting him so he wouldn't get hurt, and then didn't put him back in for the playoffs. So, I mean, there's some crazy stuff like that. So my thing is, it's like, no, the Steelers, it doesn't have to get handed back to Kenny Pickett when he's healthy if this is what's sparking the Steelers. And I mean, especially, and maybe Kenny Pickett wanted to play this past weekend because two's a pattern. Mason Rudolph does it twice. But then again, Kenny Pickett did have a lot of yards in his one game, just not many points. So it's not that he can't get the job done, although some people have already decided that he can't, and some people are already positive that he can. I really don't know. But my thing is, he's a second-year player who missed part of practice that week. It wasn't a guarantee to put him back in. And now, the way the Steelers are playing after 2 games, they'd just be foolish to go away from him.
Right.
So, yeah.
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 Foolish to go away from it. Yes. Especially because.
Yep. Like Seth says, Maddox lost his job to Ben due to injury. Yeah.
Oh, you can talk about guys losing jobs due to injury all the time.
So there's people like, no. I'm like, no, you're just spouting stuff. Sorry, I've gotten really bothered. I've got to stay off social media. Man, I'm glad my kids are going back to school tomorrow because I got to not be on there because it gets frustrating. So sorry. But yeah. Yeah. So I thought it was weird that Kenny Pickett wasn't at least the emergency quarterback. I wanted him to be number 2 because if something happened to Mason, Mitch Trubisky wasn't going to win that game. Kenny Pickett gave the best chance to win. And that's why I think it's going to be this week. What gives him the best chance to win? Go with Mason, have Kenny available, go.
Here's what I will wonder, and we can all sit and wonder, and we'll all probably never know. Mm-hmm. Was a decision made a week prior that it was basically, Kenny, if you're good enough and can get the practice time in, you'll start. If you're not going to start, then take the week off again and continue to heal.
Yeah. And the fact that
maybe
Tomlin said, well, we're going to keep the door open for Kenny this week, that could have been just as much to throw off Seattle as anything. And he could have said something to Kenny about it. I don't know. It's got blown into such a bigger story than I think it needs to be. Bottom line is the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to Baltimore with a chance to win and potentially make the playoffs.
And that's what's important. Snow's flying everywhere.
And my question is this: take the Steelers out of the equation. Look at the other things that need to happen for the Steelers to make the playoffs. Do you think any of those other things happen?
Who knows? It's the NFL, man. It's the NFL.
Yeah.
Who saw the Cardinals beating the Eagles in Philadelphia last week?
I mean, the Cardinals have 4 wins this year. I didn't check what the 4th one was, but they're the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, every week there's something crazy that goes on. So to say, oh, could it, what it, who knows? You know what? The Steelers have one job this week.
Win the freaking game.
Take care of their business.
Yeah.
Whatever happens with everybody else, if it happens and things fall the Steelers' way, great. If they don't, you know what? We'll be here again next week to talk about how it didn't go their way.
Yeah. Well, remember 2 years ago, a terrible Jacksonville team that was potentially playing for the number 1 overall pick beat the Colts that put the Steelers in the playoff.
Right. So,
almost didn't, because then there was almost a tie on Sunday Night Football.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You remember that
kind
but
of stuff.
If there's a tie on Saturday Night Football, the Steelers are in if they win. If with that one. So There's a couple things. Could Tennessee beat Jacksonville? They could. I mean, Tennessee didn't look that great this past week, but they looked decent the week before. You never know what you're getting with them. Jacksonville's really been up and down. Buffalo, they blew the doors off the Cowboys, but have not looked very good since.
Just, yeah. Who
but
knows?
Miami's beat up. You just don't know.
Right.
So
Miami's
bottom line is,
but that game matters because the East is still on the line.
Yeah.
Who knows? How about this? How about the Steelers could lose and still get in?
I know that was the next thing I was going to say. How crazy is it? The Steelers don't control their own destiny, but they could even lose and still make it.
That's insanity. When I saw that, I was just like, what?
The thing is because the Broncos can't make the playoffs now because of the tiebreakers. But if they end up with a tied record for that last spot, that gives the Steelers the tiebreaker over other teams by putting the Broncos in the mix. That's
crazy.
Why. Yes. So all these crazy things. Bottom line is, number one thing, and that's why I'm so glad it's the very first thing of the weekend. Some people don't like it. I love it. You don't have to worry about what's happening otherwise. Like last year, the Steelers are playing in week 17. Who were they? Oh, they were playing the week 18. Who were they even playing?
I don't even remember.
It was the Browns. Yeah, it was the Browns. And I'm watching. I'm at Jefferson Hartman's house.
Yeah, it was the Browns.
I'm at Jeff Hartman's house watching the game, while also on my phone watching the Jets and Dolphins, because that game was just as important. And that's when Joe Flacco still sucked and could not win it for the Steelers to go to the playoffs. Which is funny because Bob Labriola said Joe Flacco was out of the NFL for 20 months. I'm like, he kept the Steelers from going to the playoffs last year because he couldn't win for the Jets. He hasn't been out that long. But anyway, I kind of like it that you could completely focus on the Steelers game, even though they have the same officiating crew that officiated the Cowboys and Lions games.
Hey, and believe it or not, there's not going to be anything else I'm going to be wanting to do at that time on Saturday. Because how much snow did you say they're calling for down your way?
We right now they're even saying it could be 5 to 8. It might fizzle to be nothing, but still.
Yeah, right now we could get 6 to 12.
Yeah, so you could just settle in and watch the Steelers play, right?
That's right.
As long as you don't lose power. So It really does come down to what the Steelers do on Saturday. And, I said this before last week. I'm like, if the Steelers are going to make the playoffs, would you much rather see them do it by taking down some quality opponents? Like, I don't care if the Ravens play their players or not. I still think the Steelers can hang with. They already beat them once this year. They're familiar enough that the Steelers aren't going to be intimidated by what the Ravens have been doing over the last however many games. They're not going to be intimidated by that. They're the team that they've already played once this year. So whether or not they play their guys, we'll see. I don't care. Part of me almost is like, bring them on. Because if the Steelers are going to make the playoffs, make it in a way to show that you could beat anybody if you get there.
Yep.
So bottom line is, go win the game. All right, Rich, give us your total so we can get everybody else to get out of here. Which, by the way, I should tell you, the odds makers are not expecting the Ravens to play their players. Let's see if the line's changed. At one point, the Steelers were favored by 3.5, and they are still favored right now by 3.5, according to DraftKings.
Okay. I reserve the right, of course, to potentially change mine in the staff picks article because right now there are an awful lot of question marks going on, especially with the Ravens.
Yes.
So that being said, I'm going to go out on a limb here and kind of say, you know what? I think we see the starting Ravens offense for 2 series.
Okay. That would be about a quarter, probably.
About a quarter. And if that is the case, I think that makes this a much closer, a very, very close game in the end. The other thing that worries me is the Steelers and backup quarterbacks for the Ravens.
Yeah.
They tend to play worse against the backups.
I was there with the Ryan Mallett debacle.
Yeah. Although the Steelers often, though, play a lot better against the Ravens with their backups as well, a.k.a. Charlie Batch going into Baltimore. And, so who knows where that's going to go. In the end, wow, I expect a close one. But I'm actually going to go 24-23 Ravens on a last-second field goal.
Oh, gotcha. Well, you picked against the Steelers a lot recently, so you gotta stay with it almost, right?
Yeah, but it's but I'm reserving the right to change that because if we start hearing things, kind of who's going to play or not play or things like that, could really impact how you pick this game. So
Yep. So this will be interesting to see. Afton Forage, she's got 37-13 Ravens. Okay. Where Thomas Riley, he's not going with the tie again. He's going Steelers 34, Ravens 30. He hopes. Okay. Remember, if you don't put a team with your score, we assume you mean Steelers, but we'll see how these go. Steel Dog 88 has 24-19 Steelers, and then Jacksonville's lose to the Titans to put the Steelers in. Brian Brown, it skipped on me. Where'd he go? Sorry. I'll come back to that one, John. Brian Brown has starter 17-16 Steelers. Backups 27-20 Steelers. All right. There you go. Frosty the Bear has 16-13 in overtime. That's what it was in what year was that? Was that 2020? Was that 2021? 2021. Yeah, I don't remember when they won in Baltimore in overtime.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that might have been. I don't know. Or maybe that was 20. I don't know. They lost in 29. I can't remember. One of those in there. I'm getting all my years mixed up. That might have been the one I was talking about when I said they finished up when I was at Jeff's house. I can't remember. No, last year was last year against the Browns. It was the Ravens year before. Okay. Richard Adamson says 23-20 Steelers. Steelers Pittsburgh says 17-13 Steelers. Outside Steeler fan says good guys 24-10. Said that the defense is going to 10 points, holding them to 10 points both games. That'd be pretty good. Seth Phyllis has 28-10 Steelers. Russ wasn't here at the beginning, I don't think, when we talked about how there's some cheap tickets to the game. Russ says he's going to be at the game.
Represent Russ.
Yep. And see, that's the other thing. Do the Ravens it's really important that we've been on such a big roll that we keep that roll going. But you also got to say, do we kill that roll if one of our main guys gets hurt? It's a tough one. Jeremiah Yoder has 34-17.
Or do you kill that roll if you roll with your guys and still
they lose?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a good point. Okay. Tom Vallejo has 33 Ravens, Steelers 13. Ooh, I don't know if this is going to be a blowout game. I mean, I guess it could. You just never know. Does the Steelers offense run out or something at some point? I don't know. Harvey Stone has 27-21 Steelers. Mark Ballone has 34-17 Steelers. Okay. Gavin Anthony says, if the Ravens rest their starters, Steelers 21-17. If they don't, he has the Ravens 35-10. Mr. Woodside has 22-20. For Steelers, a lot of snow would make it 20-16 Steelers. George Stein has 24-21 Steelers. Kevin Brokenborough has Steelers 27, Ravens 17. There's Russ's score. Steelers 30-20. What's big is 31-20 Steelers. Jerry Cherryman, thanks for the great music. Steelers 24-20. Javier Mori. I hope I said the last name right. 21-17 Ravens. Jamie Carlo has 30-21 Steelers. M. Marcus 39. He thinks Mason's going over 300 in the snow. He has Steelers 36-21. I'd take that one. David Poe has 19-16 in overtime for the Steelers. Victory Asher has 26-17 Steelers. Steelers Reaper has 24-13 Dirty Birds. Ronan has 27-20 Steelers. Steelers Freak has 31-17 Steelers. And he has Mason going huge with 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. Yeah.
Not if it's snowing.
Bring on the controversy, right? Sherry Richards has 27-21 Steelers. Steeler Chick 46 has 24-21 Steelers. He has Tucker missing a field goal. Hashtag Boz is better than Tucker. Love it. Do you see any more scores? Lots of good discussion. I think that's the last score we got.
I think that was the last score.
Rich, what? Oh, wait. I got one more.
Let's see. You got one.
Nope, wait.
There you
Clicked
go.
on the wrong thing because it skipped on me. George, is that
Pack the Man
has 17-11 Steelers. Here's the thing, Rich. I almost don't want to think about it. This could be the last time we're talking about upcoming scores. Oh,
which is why you
Deb
got to get
has
this
20.
one.
That's 30-27 Steelers. I'm not even going to try to say that last name. I'll screw it up. Thanks, Deb. I don't like thinking about it, but it's a possibility. Steelers could win the game, and it could still be their last one of the season. But once again, we could talk about what woulda, coulda, shoulda during the season to not put the Steelers in this position right now. But we're going to have a long time in the offseason to talk about that. Right now, let's see this team go out. Let's see them run the football. Let's see them have a balanced offensive attack. Let's see them play some complementary football offense to defense like they've been playing. I just want to see more of the same like I've been seeing the last 2 weeks because, my goodness, hasn't that been fun and exciting football to watch?
Been the most fun all year has been the last 2 weeks. It has been.
Yeah.
But we will see.
Yeah. Yep. Javier asked a question real quick before we move on because they talk about Bills lose or Jags lose. They don't both have to happen, only one, because either the Texans or the Colts have to lose because they play each other, unless they tie, and then the Steelers make it in if they win, because a tie would even be better. So, Rich, first time in 2023. Sorry, first time in 2024. I screwed that one up. I almost said the last time for 2023 season. We don't know if that's the case or not. What do you have to say to send us out here tonight?
Okay. Run late, so we're going to keep it short and sweet. Okay. Happy New Year to all of our fans out there on SCN. We appreciate you. We've had a good year this past year and hope to keep bringing you guys great content in 2024. Come Saturday, it's probably going to be snowing like the dickens here at my house. I will actually give an update. I will actually give a storm update as the game is going on in the knee-jerk reaction article. I will let everybody know how much snow has fallen, and what is going on outside, and tell you what's going on here on the western part of the state, as compared to what we are seeing on television with the weather, with the Steelers and the Ravens. I'm going to stay here nice and snug in my house, and sit on the couch and watch the game, and hopefully Kyle will watch with me. I bet he starts with a banishment of himself to the basement and then comes upstairs again like he did last week. I didn't banish him last week. He banished himself and then asked if he could come up. I expect to see that again, but it's going to be a lot of fun. How happy am I? Because I did not expect the Steelers to be playing a meaningful football game this week. A couple weeks ago, I thought it was done. I thought it was over. The Steelers have proved us all wrong, and here we are, week 18, playing for a chance for the Steelers to get into the playoffs. Can't wait.
Can't wait.